So I am going to react to a track I've never heard from Fire Emblem Awakening. I have played this game. I haven't played all the Fire Emblems, but I've played most of them, and I usually do really like the music, especially a few tracks from Three Houses. Some of my favorite tracks overall, but I find myself usually not being familiar with the tracks that Fire Emblem fans and fans of similar game music to me usually shout out as some of the best pieces ever, some of the best tracks from the series. Usually I'm unfamiliar with them. They're not something that's been part of my consistent listening. So I feel like I missed them in the games I played and have gone kind of underappreciated by me. So one thing I want to explore is just some of these highly recommended tracks from Fire Emblem. I am a classical pianist and composer, and there's a lot of that in Fire Emblem. There's a lot of piano, there's a lot of classical influence. Some of my favorite tracks from it are ones that are very particularly heavily classically influenced, although I will say I do actually really like the Three Houses kind of dubstep track. I personally thought that was a very fun moment in the game. It was people make fun of it, clown on it, and put it in a worst game music playlist, but it was great. It was different. I thought that was awesome too. So I don't need something to be classical to enjoy it, but that's a perspective that I bring. Sometimes that's good. Sometimes that means I really love something that feels classically inspired, especially if it honors it and does it in a really authentic way. But it also can mean I'm really hard on it. I might just listen to some tracks and go yeah, it's got piano, classical influence, but I just don't feel like it's doing that much with it. It's a pastiche, or it's just not achieving a lot with it, or it sounds very cliched. So it goes both ways. I have heightened interest, but I also have been exposed to so much of it that I can be stricter on it. So when I really do like something that is, for example, a track with piano, then it really means something, because I can have pretty high expectations. But anyways, let's jump into the reaction. I'll separate this with chapters, so if you do want to skip these intros, I might have some long intros and outros and analysis depending on the piece, that you can easily just skip to the chapter marker, and I'll try to do that for all my videos, but this is my first one ever. So yeah, and this is an 8-minute piece, so here goes nothing. And yeah, let's listen. Oh, and yeah, before I do it, I didn't fully mention it, but yeah, I completely have no recollection of this track. That first half second didn't sound familiar. I've played this game, but I may have never even heard this track. Who knows? So complete initial listen. Holy shit. Nice transition into the first real theme. Nice, expands a little bit on it. I'm gonna go back in a sec. Okay, I feel like I recognize that part. Let me grab it again. I feel like I've heard that either in a medley somewhere, not from the game. Maybe it was in Smash Ultimate, possibly. But I gotta go back to that intro. That was fantastic. I love things that do have a little bit of romantic piano concerto, possibly Rachmaninovian inspiration. One of my favorite composers, and nothing that has that inspiration really can go as far as that. They're masterworks that stand the test of time for a reason. But sometimes even just having an inspiration in that area, recreating something of that style, not everything that's derivative is bad. Everything is derivative to some degree, and even heavily derivative works can actually sound incredible and are valid and it's awesome they exist, and we do want more of that type of thing. So I'm actually going to catch this intro again because it was amazing. Like, I really liked that. It was stunning. So I'm going to hear it again. Nice timpani. Just keeps climbing the harmonies. Stabilizes. Other strings swell in. Yeah, lets go, takes a breath, and then comes back, but it kind of swells that intensity. It steps up little by little with like not the most expected harmonic progression, but one that supports the stepping up. I'm personally a huge fan, especially with composing, of like not necessarily having a huge harmonic structure in mind that's really rigid, but actually just aiming to have a certain bass motion. Especially, I find it really satisfying to continue to step downwards or continue to step upwards. A downward one you could definitely call a lament bass in a certain tradition, but that's just one name for it. People have been doing downward stepping basses since people wrote music that had polyphony. Like, it doesn't have to be called a lament bass, but that's certainly a common one of it. If you've ever heard Dido's Lament from Orpheus, that's sort of a prime example of that. Incredible as well. Maybe I'll link that if anybody hasn't heard it, because it's wonderful. But yeah, in this case, it's stepping up, but it's the same thing. I find it very satisfying, and to me, it reminds me of when I compose like that, where you're letting the bass motion you want kind of dictate, like, harmonizing that motion. So sometimes you end up like you're supporting the overall direction you want to go with this this build or this descent, and you're kind of deciding the harmony later. It doesn't have to fit like the most perfectly mathematical, like authentic cadence direction, or the perfect kind of root motion or whatever it is. Like, you can have a different order of priorities, and I really like that. So it builds up, it has that swell, it backs off, it doesn't go too hard. I love the piano arpeggio. Maybe sometime I'll turn around and like set up that I can show things on the piano. But it has these arpeggios, but they share the notes from the pinky to the thumb, so that it repeats some of the notes going up and down. A lot of people might be familiar with this who know a little like piano repertoire with La Campanella by Liszt, the Liszt Paganini transcription. Super famous piece, and does a lot of that. Up and down with octaves that share notes, so you hear the repeat of that note, and that's what this launches into right away. Back to the start. Yeah, you can hear it right away. It's really satisfying. It always sounds quite virtuosic, even though it's very simple. In fact, I use that as a crutch a lot when I improvise and play and want to do something a little bit virtuosic. Like, I use it as a bit of a crutch because it guides where your hand's moving when you share a note. You're not like flying free without a safety net. Like, you have a safety net of sharing a note and repeating it. And it oftentimes goes unnoticed or even sounds more impressive. So I personally love that. And again, last thing I'll say about this intro, I know like if you're new to me, you'll be like, wow, this guy really talks a lot about not a lot of music, but it's a great intro, and I have a lot of personal connections here. Again, very Rachmaninovian. It's his second piano concerto, one of the great pieces of music written in history. Once it launches in, ironically, like, it's past its own intro, but when it launches into its first theme, it's just that beautiful combination of piano arpeggio with a string melody over top of it. It's not a rare combination, but there's clearly like a nod here to that tradition. I won't pretend to say like it's exclusively Rachmaninoff's domain. I've been listening to Medtner's first piano concerto. Nikolai Medtner, incredible composer, underrated, but I don't know his concertos that well. And again, his first concerto, from what I recall, it also is quite a bit of a, launches into a virtuosic arpeggio with an accompanying strings melody. Very common combination. Rachmaninoff doesn't own that, but he certainly does in what has dominated the literature and he's become known for. Anyways, I'll move forward. This beautiful, like, peaceful theme. So now we're a little bit before I left off last time. Ooh, a nice swell. Trade-off of the melody between the piano and the strings. Again. Nice. Harmonic shift into the percussion. The brass comes in. Climax here. Nice, and then we get a little more rhythmic. Still got the brass and percussion. Nice. Wow, huge shift. Okay, so one thing I appreciate about Fire Emblem is that, you know, it has these, like, expansive artistic pieces sometimes, but, I mean, maybe Fire Emblem isn't that unique here, but it is kind of, a bit of a calling card for it that you can recognize sometimes, but similar to many JRPGs, it will bring in, these drums and horns that have a lot of these, you know, war and battle associations. So oftentimes, like, there's these beautiful melodies, but at some point it brings in just kind of to remind you, like, the story is about a war. Like, these are, you know, in some sense could be the drums of war, you know, the classic sort of hunting horns associations. Like, they sound like actions going on. And I mean, I think the sense of powerful action can be created from piano alone. And, you know, you can think of plenty of just game music that does that as well. But certain instruments really do have a connotation, and Fire Emblem often brings those in. I would almost say it brings them in a somewhat subtle way to begin with here, but yeah, it's cool. It changes the feel just by adding some different instruments, which of course, you know, normal thing to do, but I think it's working great. It just, you know, pulled back for another big shift. And it does a lot of as well, like for just, you know, one bar, it brings the piano to the forefront, and it kind of takes a bit of a melody in, it sounds like usually in octaves in the piano, really clear, you know, higher treble, states you wouldn't call it a full melody, but it states a little phrase, a little melodic shape or gesture, and then that can have a bit of a call and response where it gets mirrored, then the piano fades back, and then the strings come in and take it. In fact, I should find an example of what I'm talking about. Is this it? No, this is already the brass. I might not be able to find it, but I'll get better at this as I do more reactions. Anyways, I would love to show the exact moment I was thinking of, but it kind of passes off the forefront, as generally piano concertos do, but like, it's less common they do this like very immediate interplay, where just for a few seconds, one of the two takes part of a melody, and then, you know, the orchestra or the strings take part of the melody, and then back to the soloist. That passing back and forth more quickly is something that's less common. Usually they're bigger sections. So it's nice to hear, even if they're just little melodic gestures that aren't like a super bold, memorable, like, you know, earworm of a melody, but they're still lovely. So yeah, now it leaves off into the next calmer section. Let me go forward to it. There we are. Sounds familiar, like the same theme, generally. Simple two-hand piano arrangement. Gradually building a little bit of a sound context around it. Oh, right back in. Okay. Oh, Shit, I like that a lot. That was really good. Oh man, I was like, okay, like, you can't be too surprised. Sometimes with game music, you can't evaluate it quite the same way as you would like listen to a classical piece. Like, it's not always going to have the same restraint with how it transitions sections, how it narrates or story tells, because ultimately a lot of it needs to be background music in a way. Sometimes it's even like responsive. This track might be one that's dynamic with what's going on a battlefield. Something of this length, I'm guessing this was a theme during a fight and might actually be dynamic. So sometimes those like quick transitions of mood aren't actually representative of like a real crafted piece of music by like the composer, because their real goal is to make this dynamic stuff that supports the gameplay differences. You see that in all kinds of things, but notable examples are stuff like Hollow Knight or I don't know, maybe like Witcher 3, like you transition to different music, but I think Hollow Knight's a really good example. And people listen to those tracks like they're a compositional score all the time, but in reality it's subservient to the way they're made for the game. And if you don't know that context, it can be a little bit unclear why it transitions in and out of different moods. If you start trying to overanalyze, for example, with Hollow Knight tracks, if you try to overanalyze the composer's concept of the structure, then you might like come to some like awkward conclusions about like, oh, they're structuring the piece in this way, like musical structure, when that's not really, I mean, somebody chose to create a continuous track like that at some point, so there were some structural choices, but it's not really related to the core composition. Like, there are different compositions and they transition back and forth organically in the game. That's a way more interesting core decision about musical structure, original and related to the technology itself. Way more interesting than just be like, oh, it's kind of, I see, it's like a, binary A-B-A-B-A structure in this track on the soundtrack. It's like, that's boring and might even seem unimpressive. But the fact that it's dynamic in a game based on what's happening, now that's like actually, new ground in music. But yeah, I really liked what it just did. Oh man, it brought in a little harmonic shift suddenly that just energized everything, even though they didn't make it really in your face. I think right here? Right here. Oh, I love that. And in fact, I think that's a lot in Japanese pop music. I think that's a harmonic progression or a move that I've tried to sort of find and recreate. I should remember more about it, but there's something just really satisfying about it, and something I like in some Japanese pop that it just really is addictive. Something about it. It's so good. Yeah, that little movement. Really great. Oh, I love that melody. Just back and forth. New section. Nice. Back to that climbing from the intro. Interesting harmony. Oh, what a great brass descent. That was satisfying. Right back to this. Again, who knows if this is triggered dynamically by the game state. Nice little pizzicato. Oh, hell yeah. Oh my god. Holy shit. Wow, that section was incredible. God. It does like half a dozen things that are just wonderful there. Oh my God. I don't even appreciate this in the context of like game music, which to me is not any kind of a lesser form, but it does like have different goals sometimes than a pure piece of art music that, you know, is written in a vacuum. But man, this is a section I would like in any form of music, no matter what it is. It launches into this sort of energized section with this harmonic shift that just like really uplifts it, like almost like the sun just beams through, and then it just does all this satisfying stuff. It's a bit sudden, but you know. I feel like there's a piece of music I really like that has that same da 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 da. I'm trying to remember what it is. Is it like a famous song? Is it another piece of instrumental music? There's something very nostalgic about that melodic movement to me. So I like instantly like it. And that whole da 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 da. Like, it's simple, but I don't know, that's like more catchy than anything else that's happened melodically in this piece. That is the real earworm. Like, it won't be as much of an earworm as if it would be if it were repeated over and over, and I don't know if it happens more than in just this kind of section. But man, I actually really like, it's simple, but songwriting can be simple. Like sometimes, you know, it's the simplest things that actually like something about them just works, and that just works with the harmonic progression that's going on. I think it has a bit of a descent harmonically while we're getting that little neighboring notes, the ba-da-da-dum. Oh, I would love to play a piano arrangement of this, at least this section. It's so good. Holy shit. Oh, I have to get it again. With the bells in the background. A little bit surprising, like, minor key suddenly. Ooh, nice little detail to the string melody there. Okay. Building a little very subtle tension with a lot of restraint. That's a bit new section. Oh my god, okay. Okay, I see why people said this is hard to beat as one of the best tracks. I'm so glad I'm doing this. Is the real reason I'm doing a reaction channel. This is the real reason. Because I'm selfish and I don't listen to enough of this music, and I need to sit down and just take the time to be exposed to more of it. I will listen. This is going on a playlist. In fact, for this channel, I'm gonna make like a specific set of playlists for like a few different purposes or moods, and if I really like something, it's gonna make one of these playlists. I don't have that set up yet, but when I do, this is on it. Oh my god. And like, this is the type of section I'm gonna replay over and over. This is how I really got into classical music, actually. I had a way I could play music from CDs in the car I had that had a little dial, a little knob thing you could turn to like skip back in the CD, and I would just listen to the same moments of music dozens and dozens of times. Listen to the coda of some piano pieces, like Chopin's Scherzi or something like that, and just like, if something really hit me, I would just like be able to go back and quickly hear it over and over again. I love that. Like, if I like something, I want to hear it repeatedly. Man, but there's nothing I love more in the world than the rich sound of deep bass notes on a piano. It is the #1 best sound of all. It's better than, you know, a rich cello or double bass. Like, nothing is like rich low piano strings, and I love whenever they're used like this. Again, Rachmaninoff's Second Piano Concerto uses them legendarily, but I just love them here. Here we go. Give me those notes. Like, they're not the richest ever, but I still love them. Now I'm starting to get more familiar with the melody. I recognize that. We got the kind of magical forest feel. You hear it a lot in games. It's very nice. We've dropped the whole like drums and brass of the sort of war stuff for a long time. See if it comes back. It's very familiar by now, but I expect that in an 8-minute piece. Okay, here we get the drums again, the percussion. And there's the horns. Ooh, I like the little bit of, trumpets blaring right there. I feel like that hasn't been done yet. Bum, ba da bum, bum, bum. That's really satisfying. Yeah. Back to the energy. Again, maybe a dynamic section. But let's see what sections it brings back as it gets to the end of this track. It's gonna drop off. Back to this theme, probably the main theme. Alright, we're restating this theme a few times, some different ways we've heard before in the track. There was a moment that was maybe harmonically different there, just for a second, for one chord. Oh, kind of new. Oh, back to the upward stepping from the intro. Yes, I love that brass. Reminds me of like Mahler. Where are we at? One more minute. Also, I want to make clear, depending on how many people care, but I might make note a lot of like hearing the same sections over, but that's not a knock on anything. Like, for one, you don't know why game tracks are released and structured a certain way. Like I was talking about earlier, you don't really know if this is like really meant to be the way the composer envisioned this piece of music, or if this is just a way you can hear it on a soundtrack, but it really, this isn't the true identity of the piece of music. So, some parts might repeat, but it's not really a structural choice, like it just so happens to in this track. So I'm just sort of like, part of it is active listening, me checking to see like, do I feel like this is something I recall, that means something. If something's was memorable enough that I know I'm hearing it again, that's actually kind of a good like vote for it being memorable. Because sometimes you might hear the same thing repeated, but you're not even sure if it's new or not. And then maybe it wasn't memorable enough. So sometimes feeling like it's repetitive can even be a point that it was a good section of music. Another thing though is that repetition is fine. Like, this might come up in a lot of my reactions. I might find myself saying a lot like, okay, this is the same stuff we've heard before. Let's see if we get something new. But that's just because, obviously you put more attention towards like something new that occurs in a piece of music versus something familiar. But there's nothing wrong with repeating content. I mean, sure, if a piece of music is very repetitive throughout, it has like one theme with no variation, and it's, a 30-second loop for 8 minutes, then yeah, that's not great. But generally, within a reasonable range, like hearing the exact same thing again, I don't want that to ever be interpreted as like, oh, it's just like this piece of game music is like running out of ideas, so like, we'll wait until we get something new. It's boring right now. Like, no, it's fine for it to be repetitive. If anything, it serves its psychological purpose. That's how repetition works in, a very intentional structure of music, which this and other game tracks may be. They may also not be meant to be structured this way. But if they are, like, that's valid. It has a purpose to make people hear the same thing again, even exactly. Like, you want to bring them back to the familiar, sometimes so that then you can depart from it and go on a journey to a new place. And that feels different if they've already returned home. Like a rondo structure where you like keep returning home, but then you keep going to different places. Or variations where you return home, but then you keep getting a different version of that home theme. In all these cases, like restating a section, even verbatim, like has an impact on the psychological structure for the listener. Like, it's not a waste it's not lazy or anything. Anyways, let's go through the last minute. I'll try to get to the end without stopping. I also do like the DS sound. I actually like it. Oh, what is that? What song is that? Ooh, is this preparing for a loop? Maybe? I also don't know if that crunchy kind of... Okay, it's just going to fade out. Got it. Yeah, I'm not sure if this crunchiness here... I don't know if that's just my sound. I don't know if that's the quality of this recording. I don't know if that's meant to be like a subtle like brass kind of rumble that is meant to be orchestral but is being interpreted through like the DS, sound chip. And it's a limitation. Or if that's meant to be a little bit like... sound a little digital, which would be really interesting. Like I like it either way, but I'm really curious if that's meant to sound just like that, to give like a sort of technological sound for a second. Also, like, yeah, these kind of like compressed, like limited string quality sounds that are all throughout it. I actually like it. I'm a big fan of like the Game Boy Advance kind of sound chip. Like GBA Fire Emblems are my favorite, but especially games like Golden Sun, or some Pokemon games. But what's the game I'm thinking of? Final Fantasy Tactics Advance. Is that Sakuraba? I don't remember if that's the composer for it. But FFTA Tactics Advance is like, there's something about some of those orchestrally written tracks that like this crunchiness and compression from the GBA sound actually is like really iconic to me. Like, more fidelity is not always better. There's some remasters and re-releases of like albums from bands that I like as well that I think sound worse without like, there was some personality to them being dated. Like sometimes worse can be better or lower fidelity. Anyways, I'm going to switch to this other one and give a couple final thoughts. I'm sure this has been a really long recording. Oh my God, we're over half an hour. But this is just sort of a test. Like, I didn't even know how this would go. I've never successfully like actually shot a reaction video. I've wanted to do it for years. I have a lot of ideas and opinions to share. I'm kind of assuming nobody's going to see this one or ever see it, or maybe someday if like other videos get traction, people will go back to this one, but I'm going to post it anyways. I really enjoyed listening to this. I thought it was really great. I kind of just threw together this setup. Like, this is whatever I had. I'm going to improve the video making setup, and that'll be an interesting process. I'm going to make those playlists and have a bit of the end result of a reaction be just an honest review of like, how much did I actually like it? I'll be honest if things weren't my cup of tea, but I'll appreciate them anyways. But at the end of the day, like, I feel it could be exciting if like people can see whether it made the grade for a playlist that I'm actually going to use. Playlist for backgrounds when I host board games with friends, like things that would fit great for that atmosphere. stuff I want to listen to in the car while I'm driving, stuff that's like dramatic music, peaceful music. Um, yeah, I look forward to having those kind of playlists. This would definitely make it on one. Um, Although to be honest, there's like a third of it that I really like, and the other two thirds are like what I would expect from a good track from a Fire Emblem game, but like not necessarily like melodies that stick with me, or like a musical texture that stands out too much. But I still think I would re-listen to this and have it as something I listen to regularly, just for the third of the track that has those sections that just really hit for me. Like, I wouldn't want to give those up. And again, I might even like transcribe them and play those bits on piano. Maybe I'll post it if I do that, because they just sound so good. I would like to be inspired in my own work by that. But it's really great. I mean, there's moments in here that are, if I say A plus is the maximum score, not going into S or something, then I would say there, like, a third of it is A plus, and the rest of it I would give like a B. It's higher quality than that, but in terms of like memorableness and would I go back to it, I feel like if I listened to it, I would probably skip forward a little bit at points to like get to the next section that I really like. But a mix between A plus and B is an extremely high score. Yeah, I'm glad I listened to recommendations. I might keep looking at some Fire Emblem tracks that people say are some of the all-time greats that I just don't think I've ever listened to. This one I definitely hadn't listened to. Some melodies were a tiny bit familiar, but not in this version. And it may have just reminded me of a different piece of music or a song, like that bum ba dum bum. Like, I don't know what that is, but I feel like it's like a popular song and not like a game soundtrack. But other things, yeah, maybe it was arranged for Smash. I'm not sure. But this was great. I had an awesome time. This is a really long reaction, but I'm just going to post it, and maybe somebody will see it someday, and maybe it'll be an interesting, piece of history as I do a lot more videos. Hopefully you enjoyed my thoughts here, and I will see you in the next one. I'm going to try to keep posting one every day. Until next time, have a great day, y'all.